Yo, what up? It's your boy Mark Roy, and thank you for tuning in to Side Hustle, the official podcast. Okay, enough of this voice.
All right, we're back. Hey, y'all. Thank you for tuning into Side Hustle, the official podcast. And this is actually the first episode that I'm going to do today. And as I was listening to a sermon taught by Pastor Ray at Rice Church in Texas, he was talking about procrastination. And I'm a big procrastinator. Sometimes. But he was talking about good procrastination and bad procrastination. And his sermon just kind of really spoke to me as I thought about side hustle. And remember, so you're either hustling on the side, you're doing everything that you can possibly do on the side, or you get burnt out so much that you end up getting hustled on the side. And so I'm here to just kind of guide you through the ups and downs of that mentality, because we know business sucks sometimes. There's gonna come a time where they say, what's that saying? If you find something that you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Actually, you're gonna have to work 10 times harder. You just love doing it. And there are times where we hate doing what we love to do, and we just sometimes need a break. So what I'm saying is that to get over that hump, we need to not procrastinate. We just need to do it. What he said in his sermon, and this is really, really good. Again, not my words. I basically throw up everything that has been given to me, and I find a place to store it in my head and then act it out, because again, these are good words. If I could ever do or be something later on in my latter years of life, I just want to coach and mentor and make people better. A motivational coach or something, I don't know. But what he said was, there's two types of procrastination. One that has a consequence, right? If you procrastinate, there's a consequence. But also, if you do procrastinate, it might just save you from that consequence, right? And what he said was, sometimes we need to procrastinate. If we've gotten mad at a person, maybe we just need to procrastinate a little bit, take some time back, and not just spew all our feelings outwardly towards that person. We just need to reel that back in. Other times, we need to say what's on our mind right at that very moment, because then that might be the only chance that we get, right? He also said that there's two types of pain. A pain from discipline and a pain from regret. Now, hear me out. In business, this is where we need to be a little bit more disciplined in the things that we do, because I feel, and it was really resonating with me, I feel either in your 9-to-5 or your entrepreneurial lifestyle, there are things that we need to do. There are things that we need to kind of hone in on and be disciplined about. And we're going to go through some pain, but it's necessary in order to get that job done. Now, we can be disciplined enough to do that, or we can procrastinate and not do it until later, which is where we end up regretting a lot of things in life, right? And I'm not just talking about life in general is our biggest side hustle, because life engulfs this huge, just say life is this big umbrella, right? Every subcategory, and I'm trying to teach my students this now, every subcategory in our life, whether we wear a hat of being a husband or a wife or a brother, a sibling, sister, son, daughter, whatever hat that we wear, it's under this umbrella called life. And so in business, we have the same thing. The huge business or our 9 to 5 and all of our subcategories, all of our jobs that we, have to do during the day, during the week, during the month, whatever quota that we have, whatever goal that we have, we just wear so many hats, right? And you could be disciplined enough in order to do all of these things and go through that temporary pain, or you can realize it later and that pain is going to linger and you're going to regret a lot of things that you didn't do at the beginning of your life. Now, I was just talking to Amy about this. I'm 37 this year. Like, oh my word, 37. I can now say I'm in my late 30s, and I mean, for a lot of, my 60-year-old friends, they're like, oh my gosh, you're still so young. To me, I kind of, I feel old compared to and just in the industry and stuff that I'm in, there's a lot of younger cats that are just in it to win it. And so, I mean, the wedding industry, I feel like there's a lot of 20-something-year-old, wedding filmmakers, dance instructors. They're all 16, 17, 18. And I'm over here almost pushing 40. Pushing 40. That's crazy in itself. Nuts. Anyway, I digress. The business, your 9 to 5, discipline versus regret. And that is one thing. When we start a side hustle, we are either disciplined enough to understand the pain that it causes in, the short term versus the long term. And after we get hustled, there's a lot of things that we regretted not doing or doing in order to, gain that little bit of wealth that we did for the meantime. So again, side hustles start because we need extra income, or we find out that we love to do certain things and we want to figure out how to, get paid for it, right? Have that monetary gain. A lot of us start this, podcast or a YouTube channel in order to drop knowledge, and then later, comes the viewers, comes the money. But you have to be consistent. It's discipline, right? If I would have lived my whole life saying I wanted to do this video podcast, or I wanted to do just podcasting in general, and I did all the steps to do it, and I never took a chance on myself, and am now in front of this camera and providing all these things for you, I would have regretted this whole experience later. And that would suck, because why wait till later to figure all of that? I would much rather make a whole bunch of mistakes now and then, be like, well, at least I tried, right? Versus being too overly cautious of what this is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to be edited, or how I'm supposed to deliver this content. Sometimes being too clean is a regret that a lot of people, a lot of people say, I wish I would have just said it. I wish I would have just talked about it. I wish I would have just not focused on so much the presentation of it, but the content. And that was the most important part. And, man, sometimes I feel so convicted, and I don't know if you feel like this either, but sometimes I feel so convicted after hearing a sermon, and I'm like, man, God, you are talking directly to me about things in my life. And I appreciate it, because only you can really humble me in that sense Otherwise, I just feel petty and I just want to get back at the person who, you used to correct me. But I know that it's coming out of a positive place and you just want to make me better. Because I told my students this morning, they're having a really tough time with comfort zone and staying in their comfort zone because, again, they have to be in front of the camera and they don't want to be in front of the camera because they don't like talking, but they like talking with their friends. They just don't want to put themselves out there for other people to witness all of their greatness. And so what I say is, you're in front of a lens every day. Actually, there's so many lenses looking at you that you don't even notice it because we're in the thick of it. But now, when we're not surrounded by everyone and it's a small class, and now we're focused on the lens that's pointing directly at us, it kind of gets nerve-wracking. But if you actually think about it, we are being watched every single day. And not just by like the outside forces. I'm talking about people. So that's why they say the first impression matters, because again, you are it. You're the one that represents yourself in front of anybody and everybody that you come in contact with. So again, first impressions do matter. How you treat people does matter. It does. And in the sermon he said, sometimes there's so much opportunity around us that we fail to look at the opportunity because we're just surrounded by it. So we might say like, our situation sucks because, I can't do this or I can't do that. But someone that doesn't come from this opportunity is like, are you crazy? Like, you are surrounded by it. I mean, how many of us can say, I only have a radio? You're probably watching me on your phone right now. Like, that's how much opportunity we have, and we don't even understand it. We're so blessed, in this country, that we don't even understand it because we're so saturated with it, and it's around us all the time. And that's the crazy thing, is we don't even see it, and it's right in front of us. One of a saying that he said, a fish is the last one to recognize that it's surrounded by water. Why? Because it's in it, right? Americans, we're like so last minute to understand that we are surrounded by so much opportunity. Why? Because we're in it. We are in the land of opportunity. And when you recognize that, when you understand that, you'll understand that you are built way like tougher than what we actually think we are, right? A lot of our situations and a lot of the things that get placed in front of us, we think we can't handle, but we're at that crossroad to be able to understand what we're made of. Now you either cower from it or you run to it. And I mean, for me, once I'm like placed with it, I'm like, all right, well, how do we figure this out? How do I get out of this successfully, right? And most of the time you just have to own up to it. That's pretty much it. Most of the time you just have to own up to what that is that you're doing. And so most of the time we end up not owning up to it and getting hustled on the side, and that's not that's not the best feeling when you feel hustled, because you feel like you failed and you feel like you're not worth it. You feel like, no one is supporting me in this. And let me just say this. One, we got to get out of our feelings. We got to get out of our comfort zone, because nothing grows there. I tell people this all the time. If you're comfortable, get out of it, because you got to be uncomfortable to grow. And did you know that a lobster, in order to get its shell, has to shed the old shell off and then climb under a rock, get safe, and then create a new hardened shell. So when it knows when to shut it off is because its body is growing so much that it gets uncomfortable in the old shell. Meaning you got to be so uncomfortable with your old self that you grow into your new self and you take ownership of this newfound you. And it's not that you changed, it's you're growing. You're changing in a growth, in a positive growth pattern. Everyone has to grow. And if they're not growing with you, then what do they say about you? Oh man, you changed. You changed a lot. No, I just grew in a different direction and we just didn't grow together. And that's it. That's it. And sometimes it's the best thing. There's a lot of friends in my life that I've been friends with that I would want to say that we're, if we ever saw each other, we would pick up right where we left off. But in order to do life, in order to understand one another, in order to just remain that close, you got to grow together. And so, not a lot of people stuck around. Not a lot of people stuck around for this growth. Not a lot of people, understand the growth process. Maybe they don't understand your growth. Maybe they don't even understand their growth yet, and they're just trying to figure that out. We're all in different stages. And so my whole thing is pick your pain. What kind of pain do you want to endure? The pain of discipline or the pain of regret? And that was such a good word because it hit me dead in the chest. And I was like, what do I want my first podcast to be? And that's it. Pain. As weird as that sounds, as a business owner, as a regular person who's work jobs, there's a lot of pain in all of that. And you have to understand which one are you wanting to endure at the moment. Because the pain of regret outlasts the pain of discipline in that time being. But the pain of discipline will propel you to go further in whatever you're doing and get you to understand that it's only temporary, but there's a lot of growth in that area. And once you get out of that, the pain of regret lingers for so long. And the one thing when later on in life, the number one question was, do you regret anything in your life? And these are people, 80s and 90s, and they say, I just regret not doing more, right? I regret not doing more. I regret not doing that thing that I wanted to do because I was so scared to do it back then. And then I just never got around to doing it. They regret a lot. So the pain of regret just lingers and stays with you versus the pain of discipline is just so short because there is positivity on the other side. There is freedom on the other side. There is a new you on the other side. There's so much more to you than you probably even know. And I'm just finding this out myself too. There's so much more that I'm into and that piques my interest. And when you just want to share it, you just share it. That's it, right? So on the other side of that, he also said, I listened to the sermon. Now I'm just quoting him verbatim, but again, not my words. I just really find it good knowledge. And I just love, I don't know. I just love when it hits and God is saying I'm gonna preach to you today. You better listen to all of this and soak it all up. But what he said was that fear is just having faith go in the opposite direction. So if you're fearful, you can be faithful. Let me just say that one time. Fear is having faith go in the opposite direction. Because when we're fearful, we have faith that something is going to go wrong. So you do have faith. It's just going totally opposite. You just needed to go the right way. Yeah. And that right way is having faith that something will go right, not wrong. And when we think that something's going to go right, when we feel something's going to go right, we're having faith and saying, this, I believe, this, I trust that this is going to go right. But if we're always fearful, stress comes from that. Stress gets built up in that fear sphere. In that circle of fear, that's where stress lives. If you're always fearful, you're always stressed. But if you're faithful, you're always blessed. Just kidding. That's not how it works. But I just thought it rhymed. Whatever. If you're faithful, you're less stressed because why? Because you're in a positive state. You're thinking that, oh, this is going to happen. But even if it doesn't happen right then, we know that our timing is not perfect. God's timing is always perfect. So just because our timing is not perfect doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And let me share a story, but let me just tie all this in. What I'm saying is pain in your side hustle, whether or not you're making the moves or whether the moves are making you out to look like a fool. Like, we have to hone in and figure out, what do we want to do in this moment? Do we want to do all the steps? Because we got to be disciplined enough to do all those steps. Or do you just want to think about it and then regret all of those things that we didn't do later? You're either doing the hustling on the side, or you're being hustled on the side. So let me tell you a story, and then we'll peace out from here. Back then, I used to live in this house with 5 other dudes, and my rent was like $500, right? And so back then, where am I trying to go with this? Oh, back then, rent was $500. I only had $350 left over. Because why? Because all of my friends were going out, and I was gonna regret in that moment if I didn't go out and spend some money to go eat at like Applebee's or Sherry's or Red Robin's, wherever we were going. Anyway, and I'm the type that likes to pay for people too, right? If they don't have enough and I have enough at that moment, I want to just give it away. Everybody's gonna have fun. I'm good with that. But being the dummy that I was back then, I dipped into my rent money, and I was $150 short. So comes that Saturday, and I'm thinking like, I'll make it up by then. It's 2 weeks. I'll make that money up by then. No problem. That Saturday, rent is due, and I leave the house early because I'm trying to figure out where am I going to get this $150, right? Otherwise, I'm like, am I going to get kicked out or what? And so, this is how much my timing is off, and this is how much fear I had more than faith, right? I leave that morning. I don't want to talk to, the person that I owed rent to, because I got to figure this out. I'm not going to come back until like later that day. I couldn't ask anybody for help. They didn't have it. And they've helped me out so much before that I'm like, oh man, I still owe you guys too, right? I go to the dance studio. I turn on some worship music. I just sit there and I cry. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I do this for a couple hours. It is now 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I got to the studio at like 8 a.m. I was like, nope. I'm going to get up and leave before everybody else gets up in this house. And I'm going to come back later when I've figured everything out. I didn't figure nothing out. I danced, I worshiped, I cried a whole ton because I thought I was going to get kicked out. On my way home, I go and park in our cul-de-sac, and I'm thinking of ways like, how do I make this sound like, can I ask him for, an extension? Pay him in like 2 weeks. This is my first time being out, on my own. And mind you, the person that I live with is also my boss. So he's also like, I know how much you make, you know what I'm saying? So I know you make way more than rent. Where's the rent, So, man, I'm just freaking out. Anyway, I pull up to my cul-de-sac and I'm just parked right there. I get a phone call from one of my college dance students. And he was like, hey, what's up, Mark? And I was like, oh, yo, what's up, dude? He was like, hey, I'm in your neighborhood. Just wanted to see if I can stop by and prepay for some private lessons. And I was like, oh, yeah, dope. I was like, I'm by my house. And, if you want to come through, I'm just right outside right now. And he was like, cool. I want to prepay for 3 lessons. He didn't say 2. He didn't say 4. He said 3. And back then, all my private lessons cost $50. So I was like, okay, I will be here. You text me, you let me know when you're pulling up and I'll meet you outside. Hang up the phone. In that moment, I was like, for real? You couldn't just tell me that at the beginning of the day. You had to let me go the whole day. You had me ugly crying in the studio this whole entire time trying to figure out a way, and then now you want to drop this on me? Bro, God, you are funny. But you know what he taught me in that moment was, he said, if I gave it to you at the start of the morning, you wouldn't have been impacted like you are now. If I have given it to you at the start of the morning, you wouldn't have been impacted like you are now. And I needed you to understand something. Your timing is wrong. Hindsight sucks sometimes. When it's teaching you a lesson, hindsight is that thing you look back on, you're like, dang, I wish that would have went differently. But if it did go differently, would you have been the same person? Would you have looked at that situation the same way like you do now? See, if I was disciplined back then, I wouldn't have went out with friends. I would have just saved that money, got what I needed to do done, and then figured out how to have fun later, right? That regret of looking back at that was, I wasn't disciplined enough to put that money away. I wanted to go have fun, that temporary gain. But then years later, I'm still telling the story because, again, that changed my outlook of worrying about things. But see, here's the kicker. If you don't prepare what you're praying for, why would God ever give you that opportunity? Why? If you want that promotion at work, if you want your business to succeed, and you pray and you pray and you pray about it, but you're not disciplined enough to do the things that you need to do in your day-to-day routine, but you pray about it all the time, why would he bless you with that opportunity? Because you're not prepared for it. You're not prepared to take on that role. You're not disciplined enough. So what I want to say is, choose your pain. Discipline is so temporary and regret is long term. But when you flip it, the pain of regret, I wish I should have done that later. But while we're in the moment, we're like, I'm not going to do that. I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns into the next day, and the next day turns into a month from now, and that month from now is like a year from now. And now we're here doing a New Year's resolution, and we don't know where the time has gone. Discipline is like right now. Just do it right now. It's going to take a couple minutes. It's going to take an hour out of your day. What would you do anyway? Watch a Netflix show like and binge like 3-4 episodes, because them is like 45 minutes long. You know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is I'm preaching to the choir because I'm the same exact way. Get it done. Discipline is hard to do, especially if we're not used to it. But I would much rather have the pain of discipline than the pain of regret later. So when you're side hustling, just make sure that you're doing all of the hustling and you're not being hustled. Thank you. Thank you for coming into my podcast. Thank you for listening to the video. Or if you're listening to the audio version, just thank you in general. I'm gonna try and not to do any of these cuts. I'm just gonna go with it. I'm just gonna post it just like this, just raw, authentic, because no one likes fake, sometimes cookie cutterish things and overly edited things make it seem so fake. This is just a raw conversation between you and I. Thank you again. I'm so excited to get to number 2. Number 2, I think I want to have a guest on. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but man, thank you for tuning in to Discipline versus Regret, the first ever episode of Side Hustle, the official podcast.
I just love it. Love it, love it, love it. Thank y'all for tuning in. This is my sexy voice. All right.
I'm out. Peace out. Thank y'all. Good night or good morning, whenever you look at this video. Whatever. All right. I need to figure out different lighting for this. What the? Can I have my thing down here so the lighting can hit my face? Powder. Dang, I need some powder. That's why I need like my own makeup person. So they just powder me. This light just brings out all of my impurities. Ugh. Are we still rolling? Oh, we're still recording. Oh.